comes a moment in every person's life, silent, sharp, and unforgettable, when the pain is too loud to ignore. Maybe it was betrayal. Maybe it was abandonment. Maybe it was years of being unseen, unheard, unloved. In that moment, something inside breaks, but something else wakes up. And when it does, a quiet voice begins to whisper, not from the world outside, but from deep within. Nothing and nobody will ever hurt you again. These words, though often misunderstood, carry a truth that Carl Jung spent a lifetime trying to teach. And if you can truly understand them, not just with your mind, but with your soul, your life will never be the same again. At first, it sounds like a promise too good to be true. How can anyone guarantee that you'll never be hurt again? Life is unpredictable. People are imperfect. The world is chaotic. Pain feels inevitable. But what if the secret isn't in changing the world, but in changing the way we relate to it? What if the deepest hurt we feel doesn't come from the world itself, but from how we interpret what happens to us? What if the real battlefield is not out there, but in here? That's the revolutionary truth Jung spent his life uncovering. Your pain doesn't begin in the outer world. It begins in your shadow. See, the shadow is one of Carl Jung's most powerful ideas. It's not just the part of you that's dark or bad. It's the part of you that's unseen, hidden, repressed. It's everything about yourself that you were told to ignore, deny, or suppress just to fit in. Your anger, your fear, your vulnerability, your power, the need to be loved, the pain of being rejected. Over time, we push all these parts of ourselves into the unconscious, locking them away like unwanted guests in the basement of our psyche. But here's the twist. Those repressed parts don't disappear. They wait. And while they wait, they secretly run your life. This is where the hurt truly begins, not from people or events, but from our own disconnection from ourselves. That's why someone can say a single word and it cuts like a knife. That's why a relationship ending feels like death. That's why rejection, abandonment, or failure sends us into spirals of worthlessness. Because those moments are not just what they are mirrors. They reflect back the parts of ourselves we haven't made peace with. That's why Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. You don't get hurt because life is cruel. You get hurt because you haven't yet reclaimed the wounded parts of your own soul. Before we move on, if you like these videos and find them helpful, can you do me a favor and like this video and subscribe to my channel? This small action helps me a lot, but most importantly, helps other people improve their lives. I am truly grateful to every single one of you. Thank you. Let's move on. So how do you take your power back? How do you get to the place where truly nothing and nobody can hurt you again? The answer isn't found in walls or revenge or pretending you don't care. It's found in radical self-integration. It begins with facing the parts of you that you've hidden away for years. The scared child, the angry teenager, the heartbroken adult. You stop running from them and start listening. You invite them out of the shadows and into the light. You say, I see you. I hear you. You're safe now. And something miraculous happens. The pain loses its grip, not because the world changed, but because you did. This work is not glamorous. It's not instant. It doesn't always feel like healing. Sometimes it feels like falling apart. But Jung believed that the greatest gift of our suffering is that it leads us inward. And in that inner journey, we discover a treasure, our true self. The self that is not defined by trauma or rejection or failure. The self that cannot be wounded because it no longer abandons itself. This is the self that says, "You may leave me, but I will never leave me." And that is the moment when the world loses its power to break you. Imagine what it would feel like to walk into every room, every relationship, every challenge, not armored with fear, but anchored in wholeness. Imagine what it would feel like to look back at the worst things that ever happened to you, and instead of shame or rage, feel compassion for the younger you who survived it. Imagine being so rooted in your own worth that people's opinions stop defining you. That's not fantasy. That's what happens when you reclaim your shadow and integrate your inner world. You don't stop feeling. You just stop being controlled by what you feel. And that's what true freedom is. Many people live their whole lives reacting to wounds they never realized they had. They blame others. They shrink. They overcompensate. They self-sabotage. But all of this changes when you decide to stop being a victim of your past and become the healer of your present. This is the work Jung called individuation, the journey to becoming whole, not perfect, whole. That means accepting every piece of you, even the ones that still tremble. That means loving your rage, not because it's right, but because it's yours. That means forgiving yourself for all the ways you once abandoned your own heart, just to survive. Healing doesn't mean you never feel pain again. It means pain no longer defines who you are. It becomes information, not identity. It becomes a signal, not a sentence. It becomes part of your story, not the whole story. And that shift is everything. When you stop identifying with your wounds, the people who once had power over you lose it completely. You stop needing their validation. You stop chasing closure. You stop carrying the weight of trying to prove your worth. Because you finally know you were worthy the whole time. Carl Jung didn't promise that you'd never feel sadness or anger again. He didn't say the world would stop hurting people, but he did teach us something far more powerful, that the only lasting safety is self-awareness, that your greatest protection isn't control, it's consciousness, that the only way out of the pain is through it, and when you've walked through it, not around it, not over it, but straight through the fire, you don't come out burned, you come out purified, stronger, wiser, whole. And so, the truth becomes clear. Nothing and nobody will ever hurt you again. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Because you finally met yourself, not just the polished parts, but the ones hiding in the dark. And in that meeting, you made a sacred vow. I will never abandon myself again. From that place, rejection becomes redirection. Failure becomes feedback. Loss becomes a lesson. And all the chaos you once feared becomes an invitation to deeper wholeness. You were never meant to be invincible. You were meant to be indivisible, and that is where your power lives. When you are no longer divided against yourself, the world loses its power to wound you. You rise, not in arrogance, but in truth. And your truth is this: you are already whole, already enough, already free. The pain you carried was never who you are. It was the signal pointing you back to who you were always meant to be. So let the healing begin. Not someday, not when they apologize, not when it's all perfect. Now look in the mirror, not to judge but to see. That person staring back at you is not broken. They're becoming, and they are ready to reclaim every lost piece, ready to love every rejected part, ready to walk through life with a quiet, unstoppable power that whispers, nothing and nobody will ever hurt me again. Because now I have me, and that changes everything. If you made it until here, leave a mind emoji in the comments. I want to see how many of you reach the end and finish what they start. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and keep improving day by day. Together, we are unstoppable.